Good morning. I am honored to be speaking today about a topic that I'm extremely passionate about, nutrition and survivorship. I'm Dee Iraca, a registered dietitian nutritionist, a professionally trained chef, and the founder of Eat Well Chef, a business I created with a mission to inspire and empower individuals to live their best and healthiest lives by way of food and nutrition. I'm also a breast cancer survivor with a mission to help breast cancer thrivers with nutrition support. I currently lead discussions for the DBCC cookbook clubs. I'm a culinary instructor for the Yes to Health in the Kitchen virtual cooking classes, and I do one-on-one nutrition counseling to support breast cancer survivors during and post-treatment. I have a lot to cover today. I'm going to start by talking about my own breast cancer journey and how it's changed my perspective on life. I'm then going to touch upon some of the breast cancer risk factors and how nutrition plays a role. I'm also going to discuss how other areas such as mindfulness and sleep affect nutrition. Then I'm going to talk about shifting your mindset because I believe you can't make an impactful difference on your health unless you change how you think. Then I'll spend the remainder of the time talking about how to use food as medicine in your healthcare journey. And lastly, I'll be moving into my kitchen to do a cooking demonstration. Well, I'll never forget the life-changing phone call I received on December 31st, 2020, informing me that I had breast cancer. I know that statistically speaking, 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer, but I never thought that I'd be in the 12.5% category. I was 47 years old, had no family history, ate fairly healthfully, and exercised regularly. But what I learned is that breast cancer can happen to anyone. And although at the time I was diagnosed, I couldn't think of anything good about it, looking back, I realized that it's changed my perspective on life. Every day, I'm reminded of the gift of life, and I have the ability to make choices that help prevent recurrence, and I want to share some of those things with you today. Let's talk about risk factors for breast cancer. So some of these risk factors are in your control and some of them are not. Let's talk about the things that you can't influence. For example, certain races and ethnicities are predisposed to breast cancer. For example, white women are more likely to be diagnosed with breast cancer than Black, Asian, and Hispanic women. But Black women are more likely to have aggressive forms of breast cancer and at a younger age. If anyone in your family line has been diagnosed with breast cancer, specifically the BRCA gene cancer, you're more likely to have that type of breast cancer. And if you've had breast cancer, you have a higher risk of breast cancer recurrence. Now, let's talk about the things that are in your control. Or managing your weight reduces the risk of breast cancer. The reason for this is because after menopause, when the ovaries stop making estrogen, most estrogen comes then from your fat tissue. So having more fat tissue after menopause can raise estrogen levels and increase the chances of getting breast cancer. Keeping your alcohol consumption to a minimum is also recommended. Research consistently shows that drinking alcoholic beverages increases breast cancer risk because alcohol can increase levels of estrogen and other hormones associated with hormone receptor positive breast cancer. Although alcohol also may increase breast cancer risk by damaging DNA cells. Evidence also suggests that regular physical activity reduces breast cancer risk, especially in women post-menopause. Some studies have found that even as little as a couple of hours a week might be helpful, although more seems to be better. And it's probably no surprise that nutrition has an impact on your risk for breast cancer, and I'll be covering a lot of that in my presentation today. Well, whenever I talk about nutrition with my clients, I like to spend some time showing how nutrition fits in with your overall health and wellness strategy. There are really 4 key areas, or what I call the 4 pillars, that I tend to talk about because they all affect each other and work kind of in a symbiotic relationship. For example, if you don't get good or adequate sleep, it will likely affect your nutrition. It might affect your movement or maybe the lack of, and will certainly affect your mental well-being. Think about a day where you had horrible sleep the night before. Maybe you only got 5 hours of sleep because you stayed up late watching a show, or maybe it was 8 hours, but you tossed and turned all night. It's likely that you ate differently. Maybe you craved more fatty foods, or maybe you craved more sugar, or maybe you just had less motivation to go for a walk. It's important to keep all of these areas in check throughout your life. And if you find that you're not eating well, you may actually want to take a close look at the other areas of your life to see if they're affecting your nutrition. I want to delve into these four pillars of health a little bit more. I want to point out that nutrition includes hydration, which is what we drink or how much we drink throughout the day. If you're dehydrated because you only drink 2 to 3 glasses of water a day, you may be eating extra sugar because you think you're hungry when in fact you're thirsty. It also includes supplements you take. Think about calcium, vitamin D, some of the supplements you might take. They're going to give you nutrients just like food would, so I consider them to be part of your nutrition. Movement is one of my favorites to talk about because so often we call it exercise, which sometimes kind of has a negative undertone. And yes, of course, exercise is movement, but movement is so much more. It's taking a walk at lunch. It's parking farther from the door every time you go to the grocery store, maybe to get extra steps. It's cleaning your house. Bottom line is it's minimizing being sedentary. Sleep seems to be a pillar that's often ignored, but for decades, studies have shown that our bodies need to rest and recover. Plus, sleep affects two satiety hormones called ghrelin and leptin. Next time you've had a horrible night's sleep, pay attention to how often you're hungry or what you crave and how much you eat. These two hormones, which signal when you're hungry and also signals when you're full, are affected by your sleep. And lastly, mental well being, which encompasses reducing your stress, getting social interaction, and just being mindful or present with what you do. I love this quote. It encompasses all of what I just talked about. Your body is your home. You only get one. So fuel it properly, move it daily, rest it wisely, always. Jim Rohn. Well, living a healthful life has gotten substantially more difficult over the past couple decades, mostly because of what I call the three M's: money, marketing, and media, aka social media. You can't scroll through Instagram without seeing someone promoting a health product or a service. The health and wellness industry is a $480 billion industry, and that number continues to grow each year. Lately, it feels like everyone's trying to make money in this industry. Well, the good news is that society is focused more on health and wellness. According to this McKinsey study, 82% of US consumers consider wellness to be a top priority. Unfortunately, the bad news is that it's becoming increasingly harder to figure out what's healthy and what's a sales tactic. So, the first step to living a healthier life is to change your mindset. Think about when you've wanted something so badly and what steps you took to obtain that goal. It's the same for living healthfully. No one in your life can help to support you more than yourself. So it starts with changing your outlook so that the outcome is what you want. Here are some shifts to consider. Instead of saying, I have limitations, start saying that my life is limitless. Instead of saying, I can't do something, focus on the things that you can do. Instead of saying constantly, I want to lose weight or I want to be skinny, try thinking about gaining strength. Instead of going on a fad diet, think about changing your lifestyle. Instead of eating mindlessly, start eating mindfully. Think about when you eat something in the car and you're running around like a yo-yo with your life and you're not even paying attention to what you're eating. Instead, shift to only eating food when you can properly sit down, take a moment for yourself, and eat mindfully. And lastly, Instead of being overwhelmed by everything around food and nutrition, maybe keep it simple and straightforward. Once you've decided that your health is priority and you've started to shift your mindset, well, what's next? One other shift in mentality is thinking about food as medicine. Most of you have probably heard of this proverb by Hippocrates: let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. Over the last few years, the notion of using food as medicine has become more mainstream and has become a phrase used in medicine and health and wellness. There are many ways we can use food as medicine to enhance our health and wellness. Eating foods that contain prebiotics, probiotics, and fiber are good for the gut. And studies are now showing that a healthy gut can lead to a healthy immune system. Additionally, vitamin C and zinc are vitamins and minerals that support immune health. And lately, there's been a lot of research about neurological health, both from a mental wellness perspective, but also from a disease perspective. If you think about Alzheimer's research and how that's linked to, the foods that we eat. And consuming more fruits and vegetables like whole grains and healthful fats are key to preventing many chronic diseases. So for the remainder of today's presentation, I want to discuss how you can use specific foods as medicine in your healthcare journey. While there is no diet or specific food that prevents breast cancer, there are many foods that can reduce your risk and reduce your risk of recurrence. And that's really what I want to focus on today. Let's first talk about protein, my favorite. Unless you've been living under a rock, there's been an overload of information and research about protein. So, for most of you, there's no doubt that protein is essential and important to focus on. But here's what you may not know. Protein is essential for almost every function in our bodies. When we think about protein, we think about muscle building, usually, but it really does so much more. Protein helps boost the immune system because amino acids are essential for the synthesis of immune proteins. Proteins also help to regenerate new growth, which affects your skin, nails, and hair. It also promotes muscle, but not only promotes muscle, but it also helps your body retain the muscle that it has. This is really beneficial as we age, since we lose muscle at a faster rate. Studies suggest that having an adequate amount of protein contributes to bone health by stimulating the osteoblasts. And protein helps your body repair. Did you know that when you're recovering from an injury, illness, or surgery, your body actually needs more protein? So, if you're currently undergoing breast cancer treatment, for example, that's something to take into consideration. If you're having surgery, you might want to try eating more protein prior to the surgery as well as after the surgery, which can help you recover faster. So, how much protein do we need? Well, if you ask 5 different nutritionists, you're going to get 5 different recommendations for protein. Why is that? Well, it's because there's no exact science to how much protein we need because every person is different. Plus, every person has a different activity level, different goals, different age level. So it's really difficult to really pinpoint an exact amount of protein. Well, the USDA recommended daily allowance is actually 0.8 grams per kilogram. So in this example on the top left-hand corner, you can see that I converted this person who weighs 150 pounds, I converted that to kilograms, which is 68 kilograms, multiplied it by 0.8 grams, and got a need of 55 grams a day. Recent studies suggest that this calculation may be too low. So what I usually do is do kind of a more practical calculation. So you can see that at the top right. This is kind of an easier calculation, and I think it probably aligns more with what our bodies really need. So this is 1 gram per kilogram. So again, 150-pound person, convert that to 68 kilograms, multiply it by 1, and you get 68 grams. If you are somebody who's looking to lose weight, the protein needs are going to be higher. You're going to want to have more protein because you don't want to be losing muscle when you're losing weight. You only want to be losing the fat. So, in order to do that, increasing your protein will be more beneficial. So, for this person, 68 kilograms times 1.25 grams, you'll get a daily need of 85 grams. And I also mentioned surgery recovery. So if you're somebody who's undergoing surgery, anywhere between 1.2 and 2.0 grams per kilogram. So in this example, I said a 68 kilogram person times 1.5, their needs are 102 grams. And lastly, at the bottom, you'll see athletes or somebody who is very active is definitely going to need more protein. So in this example, we've got a 68 kilogram person times 1.8, and that gives you 122 grams. That's a lot of protein, but again, for somebody who is very active, their body is needing a lot more protein than somebody who isn't. So now that you know how to calculate your protein needs, the next step is to figure out how you're going to get that much protein each day. It's really best to make a plan and be purposeful. If you don't, you may not get enough protein regularly, which can be disadvantageous to your health. Since protein is used by your body for so many functions, you need to fuel with protein throughout the day. So, for example, if you need 85 grams of protein per day, it's really not optimal to say, okay, I'm going to get 60 grams for breakfast and 20 grams for lunch or 25 grams for lunch and call it a day. Your body runs more efficiently when it's given protein throughout the day. So, for someone who needs 85 grams a day, take a look at this example that I put together. That person might want to strive to have about 20 grams of protein for breakfast, 10 grams for their snack, 20 grams for lunch, 10 grams for their snack, and 25 grams for dinner. Typically, we get more protein for dinner because we eat a bigger meal at dinner. So that's something to take into consideration. Then, once you have a plan, then you need to figure out what foods give you the protein that you need. So, I put together this list with some common foods that contain protein. It's categorized, so if you're vegetarian or vegan, maybe you won't focus on the meat section so much or even the dairy section, but you can see there's lots of other options, foods that have protein. All right, speaking of plant-based source, the next thing I want to talk about is plant-based foods. So, most of you probably know plants are full of vitamins, minerals, and compounds, making them really incredibly nutrient dense. Those things called phytochemicals are compounds that offer a wide range of health benefits, primarily because they have antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and anti-carcinogenic properties. One of the primary ways phytochemicals help in cancer prevention is by acting as antioxidants. So you think about free radicals in your body that can damage cells, leading to mutations that contribute to cancer development. Those phytochemicals, like the ones I have listed here, flavonoids, carotenoids, and polyphenols, are abundant in colorful fruits and vegetables, and they neutralize those free radicals, thus protecting your cells from damage. Plants are also full of fiber. Did you know that the recommended daily amount of fiber is 25 to 38 grams per day? Unfortunately, most Americans get 12 grams of fiber a day, about half. So eating more plant-based foods will contribute to a higher fiber diet. Plant-based foods are also low in calories, especially foods like leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, some root vegetables. So, if you're trying to keep your calories to a minimum, eating more vegetables is not only healthier, but it also can keep your calorie intake lower. So, these are some of the vegetables that I mentioned earlier The leafy greens, so we've got Swiss chard and butter lettuce. We've got cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower, and this is a beautiful set of two colorful cauliflower. And then the root vegetables, we've got carrots and we have radishes. So I thought it might be fun to show you when I mentioned that plant-based foods are oftentimes low in calories. I wanted to show you what that looks like. So take a look at the 1 cup of Swiss chard. You're going to get 35 calories. I want you to stop and think about that. 35 calories for a cup of Swiss chard. And if that's not so surprising, what about 1 head of butter lettuce? Now, I don't know about you, but I don't eat 1 head of butter lettuce. I probably eat a half or a quarter in a sitting. 1 whole head of butter lettuce will give you 21 calories. That is almost unbelievable. You look at the cruciferous vegetables, like a cup of cooked cauliflower, for example, you're going to get 29 calories. A cup of carrots, you're going to get 55 calories. And by the way, that's cooked carrots. And then lastly, a cup of radishes will provide you with 19 calories. And I thought it would be fun to show you a comparison of McDonald's French fries. They will give you 229 calories. So I want you to stop and think about that. I don't know how many heads of lettuce you'd have to eat before you even got to 229 calories for the butter lettuce, but it would be a lot. So I didn't do the math. So the moral of the story is that, vegetables, not only are you going to get more nutrition, you're going to be getting food as medicine, but you're also going to be getting a lot less calories than if you were to eat something like French fries from McDonald's. Let's talk about fruits. People sometimes shy away from fruit because of the natural or because of the sugars. But remember, these are natural sugars and you're getting fiber, water, and tons of nutrients like antioxidants. So fruit should be a part of your diet. The recommended daily allowance of fruit and vegetables is 5 servings. So what I recommend is to make 1 to 2 of your servings be fruits and 3 to 4 of your servings be vegetables. Now, just remember, if you're eating dried fruit, that dried fruit is dehydrated. So those sugars are more concentrated and you should eat smaller portions of those. This is an opportune time to talk about soy, which has been a controversial topic linked to breast cancer for 25 plus years. So, as a breast cancer survivor and a dietitian, I've made it a point to keep up with the latest research on this particular plant-based food. Previous research indicated a possible effect of soy in breast cancer patients because of the estrogen-like effects of isoflavones. However, most of the clinical trials were done with mice and rats, not humans. Additionally, there is no substantive evidence that shows a cause and effect relationship. Clinical trials consistently show that isoflavone intake does not adversely affect markers of breast cancer risk. In fact, other studies show evidence that soy reduces breast cancer risk, but that it's most beneficial for those who consume soy early in life during childhood and adolescence. In October of 2024, the American Institute for Cancer Research published a comprehensive article about soy and their effect on breast cancer. And I wanted to show that to you today. So if you look on the left there, this myth, soy isoflavones act like estrogen in the body, raising the risk of cancer. The article goes on to say isoflavones are natural plant compounds found in soy foods. They have a similar chemical structure to human estrogen, but they function differently in the body. Not understanding the difference between estrogen and isoflavones led to many false assumptions and concerns. If you look to the right, the facts, studies do not link eating soy to an increased risk of any cancer, including breast cancer. In fact, studies show that soy isoflavones may reduce the risk of developing breast cancer. In conclusion, soy has some incredible health properties. It's a great plant-based source of protein, and for vegans and vegetarians, this often enables a person to meet their protein needs. And most importantly, recent research has debunked the myth that soy promotes breast cancer. Let's talk about fats. Well, despite the movement to remove fat from our diet in the 80s, we've moved far from that. Today, we know that some of that research was correct in that some fats should be limited, but we also know that there are some fats that are essential to our diet. Dietary fats give your body energy and they support cell function. And they help your body to absorb some key nutrients, specifically fat soluble vitamins like vitamins A, D, E, and K. And lastly, fats keep you incredibly satiated because they provide you with 9 calories per gram versus protein and carbohydrates, which provide you with 4 calories per gram. So, not all fats are created equally, so it's worth spending a couple of minutes discussing the different types of fats. So, there are 3 major categories of fats. You've got the unsaturated fats on the left, which are the healthy fats, and then you have the saturated and the trans fats on the right, which are the unhealthy fats. As you can see from the chart, there are also 2 major kind of subcategories of unsaturated fats. One of them is monounsaturated, which is made up of omega-9 fatty acids, and the other is polyunsaturated fats, which have 2 categories, one omega-3 and one omega-6 fatty acids. The recommended daily allowance of fats is 20 to 35% of our total calories. Oftentimes, I ask my clients to think about it as a quarter to a third of your intake should be from fats. And it's important that the majority of those fats be unsaturated because they are more healthful. These fats have been proven to reduce the bad cholesterol levels in your blood, which can lower your risk of heart disease and stroke. Saturated fats actually do the opposite. They raise your bad cholesterol levels, which can heighten your risk for heart disease and stroke. And trans fats, well, they're arguably the worst kind of fats. Studies have proven that trans fats are disadvantageous for our health because not only do they raise your bad cholesterol levels, but they lower your good cholesterol levels. So it's important to try and avoid these types of fats. Well, let's talk about some foods that contain fats. Starting with the good fats, you'll see that under monounsaturated, you've got olive oil, which would include olives. You've got avocados, which would include avocado oil. We've got peanut butter, which would also include peanuts. Those are all examples of monounsaturated fats. Then you've got on the right-hand side, you've got your polyunsaturated fats. So omega-3 specifically, you've got walnuts, you've got flaxseed or flax meal, and you've got salmon. And then your omega-6s, you've got soybeans, tofu, sunflower oil. I think safflower oil is in there as well. And they all contain omega-6 fatty acids. And then when you think of examples of the bad fats, if you look at saturated fats, you've got pork, beef, and lamb. So any of those fattier cuts of meats particularly will have a high amount of saturated fats. Coconut oil is also a saturated fat. Even though it is a plant-based fat, it is still a saturated fat. And then lastly, of course, butter is a saturated fat. And then for trans fats, you've got any manufactured foods like pie crusts, baked goods, and margarine are just examples of those foods that are trans fats that you should try to avoid. Well, I wanted to also take the opportunity to talk about another hot topic, seed oils. For those of you who have never heard of these, seed oils are basically oils that are produced from seeds. Things like grapeseed oil, you've got canola oil, which is actually made from rape seed. You've got soybean oil, you've got sunflower oil. Those are just some examples. Over the past couple of decades, there has been a lot of speculation about seed oils and health. If you go online, you'll find countless of articles that tout them as being bad for our health. causing inflammation and chronic disease. Over the past 3 years, I've researched this topic and I can't find any credible information or clinical trials that have tested seed oils on humans. And to date, I've not found any evidence to substantiate these claims. In fact, a recent epidemiological study concluded that omega-6 fatty acids found in seed oils, like soybean oil, for example, is beneficial to health, especially stating that they reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease and some cancers. On March 6, 2025, JAMA Internal Medicine published the results of a cohort study of 221,000 adults from 3 large cohorts. And that concluded that higher butter intake was associated with increased total and cancer mortality, while higher intake of plant-based oils was associated with lower total cancer and cardiovascular disease mortality. The JAMA study's findings about the benefits of canola and soybean oil challenge the thinking among those who try to avoid seed oils, including canola and soybean oil, because of concerns over their possible links with chronic disease. And lastly, I'm going to talk about whole grains. Whole grains are another group of foods that help keep us healthy and have many benefits. First, whole grains provide fiber and often more vitamins and minerals. That's because they're made with the whole kernel, which has all the good stuff. When we eat white flour or bread made with white flour, you're not getting the nutrients you would in a whole grain product. Fiber also slows down your digestion, which is important for blood sugars. Whole grains also keep you feeling fuller longer, which is good for weight management. And when you eat whole grains, the fiber keeps your digestive tract moving along. Lastly, whole grains often contain soluble fiber, which binds to cholesterol and removes it. So it helps to keep your cholesterol levels down. Here are some ways you can increase your whole grains. So instead of eating regular semolina pasta, for example, try eating a whole wheat pasta. I always encourage my clients, if you haven't found a whole grain pasta that you like, there are so many on the market. Keep trying different ones. I like Barilla, for example, but that's just one of many that are out there. And I encourage you to try different ones. Instead of eating white rice, try brown rice. Again, lots of different brown rices out there. Short grain, long grain, jasmine, basmati, you name it. Find one that you like and stick with it. Crackers, instead of eating saltine crackers or Ritz crackers that are predominantly made with white flour, eat something like wheat thins or Triscuits or something that has a lot more fiber in it. Instead of eating wheat bread or white bread, try eating whole wheat bread, something that has whole wheat in it. And I want to make a note. You can see the stamp at the top right-hand corner. This stamp is on some of our foods in the grocery store. This is what we call the whole grain stamp, and it really identifies a product quickly to show you that it is made with whole grains. If you look at some of those products below, you'll see my little arrow. There's a small stamp on that Mission tortillas, and that indicates that that product is full of whole grains. Now, if a product doesn't have the stamp, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have whole grains. What you'd have to do is look at the ingredient list to see if something is listed with the word whole in it. Whole wheat, whole rice, whole rye, and then that would help to indicate whether it's made with whole wheat. One thing about bread that gets very confusing, bread specifically, is that when you look at the ingredient list, if it says that the first ingredient is wheat, wheat flour is not the same as whole wheat flour. You've got to have the word whole in there. Wheat flour, by the way, is white flour. It's just the flour that's been stripped of all the nutrients. So it's really important that if it doesn't have that stamp, that you look a bit further onto the ingredient list and make sure that it says something like whole wheat flour, which will indicate that it is made with whole grains. As I bring my nutrition discussion to an end today, I wanted to touch upon the Mediterranean diet because it's become a very popular eating pattern that many experts recommend. If you start to compare them, you'll see what I've talked about today and the recommendations for the Mediterranean eating pattern are very similar. So, if you ever wonder what's healthy and what to eat, you can always reference this model, which provides a lot of direction on eating healthfully. I hope that this nutrition information has helped you sift through some of the noise that sometimes causes confusion and angst. Now, I'd like to invite you to join me in my kitchen because talking about food and nutrition is one thing, but actually showing you how to make food for nutrition is another. So let's do some cooking together.